Hello and welcome. Oh, I'm so excited about today's video. Today's video is all about, I have to grab her, Natasha Denona, the Retro Glam MIDI palette. So if you like that kind of content, make sure you stay tuned. Hello my friends, welcome. So excited about today's video. It is all about Natasha Denona. You know I love her. I'm a Natasha Denona stan, I have to admit. But yeah, today is very, very special. I finally received my Natasha Denona Retro Glam palette and she's pretty. Oh, look at that packaging. I just think it's so cute. I love that design. That definitely feels retro. She did a good job with the packaging for sure. The color scheme, yeah, I think it's a nice take on retro. So yeah. So I'm so excited to talk all about her. And so yes, so if you like this kind of content though, please make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe down below, turn on all notifications. Otherwise, let's just get right into this video because there's a lot to talk about. All right, well, today's video is going up a little bit later than I expected. It is now Saturday morning, but I had to work the night, of course, that I got the palette, so there was just nothing I could do. And I was up all day yesterday without any sleep after work, swatching all day. I'm going to throw in some pictures here randomly as I show you all the swatches, all the comparisons I did, but I can't even tell you how many palettes I compared this thing to. It is overwhelming, and that's probably why I don't do dupes. Love you, Smithy Sony, but I'm leaving dupes to you, except an occasional here and there, because this is a lot of work. When you have as many palettes as I do, this is a project in itself, just trying to find dupes, because you know, you get overwhelmed and just obsessed with, okay, gotta find the perfect shade, perfect, you know, it's like, oh my God, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's not gonna be perfect, but yeah, anyway, so it's been a journey, but yeah, I'm just gonna throw in some pictures, but yeah, I'm so excited. I'm sure you know by now, this is what everybody was hoping the original retro would be, but yeah, so pretty though. So we have 15 shades. The price has now gone up to $69. It used to be $65, now $69, but I mean, there's just price increases, inflation, you know, it's spread throughout the beauty community, so it's not just her. So, but yeah, I think there's a beautiful mix of shadows in here, and I'm sorry if you hear a lot of like erroneous noise, but again, it's Saturday morning, everybody is here, and there's just not much I can do as far as the noise. We're just going to go along and I'm going to show you and talk about this beautiful palette. She is so pretty. So the new Retro Glam palette, so pretty. And even the website, I like how she did some of the website here. First thing you see here is the palette itself. Like I said, 15 shades. And then this is what she says about the Retro Glam, bringing two of Natasha's most celebrated creations into a new mid-size eyeshadow palette concept. This dynamic color story combines the greens, pinks, and neutral nudes of the mini retro eyeshadow palette with a variety of seductive glam eyeshadow palette finishes and a collection of all new shades. So again, she does say this is all new, so we will see. And then it says, use alone to create mesmerizing multi-dimensional looks or pair with other palettes in the retro and glam families for unlimited inspiration. It says ranging from muted sage greens and cool browns to shimmering dusty pinks and sparkling champagne nudes. The Retro Glam eyeshadow palette suits every occasion. And then it tells you how to use. It says to prime. For matte shades, for a seamless diffuse finish, apply in swiping motions with a fluffy eyeshadow brush, ensuring to tap off excess. For maximum color payoff, apply with a soft, dense eyeshadow brush in packing motions and then blend to diffuse. For duochromes and metallics, for maximum color payoff, apply with a soft, dense eyeshadow brush in a packing motion. For a foiled finish, apply with a damp, dense eyeshadow brush or with the tip of your finger. I always, as you know, use my fingertip for any kind of like metallics, any of those types of shades. I just like the application and just the preciseness I can use. So shade descriptions, just going across the row here. Flare is a sparkling metallic vintage rose with a silver shift. Jazzy is a metallic dark pool brown. Oscar is a metallic light medium vintage champagne. Evergreen is a matte cream powder medium dark sage green. Marlin is a metallic light medium sage green. Maxi is a metallic medium dark warm taupe. Sage is a matte medium sage green. Holly is a matte light neutral rose. Fringe is a matte pastel sage green. Faye is a matte medium muted clay. Flutter is a sparkling light champagne pink. Lucy is a matte light limestone. Palladian is a metallic pastel sage green. Belle is a matte medium dusty rose. And Oz is a metallic medium dark muted forest green. And then they tell you the finishes, so there she is. The shade here, Flutter, is one of her crystal chroma shades, so it has a high sparkling effect, basically like a topper shade. And then she's got some cream to mattes and some basic mattes, and then of course metallic shades in here. Nice formula. I do like so far. I've swatched it multiple times, and even after swatching it, I haven't had any problems yet with like, you know, any hard pan or anything like that. So I am definitely pleased with that. But yeah, I think it's a very pretty color story. So what we're gonna do here is I did find some dupes for all of these. So we're gonna go ahead and swatch these. I've done 2 looks. So after I do the swatching, I'll show you the 2 looks I've done. This is of course look number 2. And then what I'd like to do is do a look together. So once I show you some of the comparisons here and something else I'm going to show you here, which I'll show you in a little bit, then we will make a look with this palette together. So it took me a long time. Oh my gosh, you don't even know. I think it took me 7 hours total to do all my swatching and comparisons and find the exact, or what I thought was the closest dupe for all of these. So we're just going to go across the row as they're laid out here, and I'm going to show you the ones that I duped with these shades. So here we go. So I do have some different options for a lot of the shades. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the one that I thought was just either the most accessible, or, you know, the closest, or the only shade I had for that specific color, and then tell you some of the other options you might have that I found are very similar. So starting with shade Flare, and I think this is one of the metallic ones. I think it's just a basic metallic. There she is. So what I'm going to try to do here, because I do have to do both sides, is I'm going to put Natasha on this side and I'll put the other one on the other side. So we'll try to split it so you can see. I'm going to start pretty high because we do have 15 shades to swatch. So there's Natasha's, and again, that is shade Flare. Oh y'all, this is going to be a long video. I'm just warning you. I'm sorry. Just warning you in advance. Now the one I found that was probably the most accessible, maybe least expensive, and one that I just really liked as far as a dupe is Flower Beauty's Desert Lights in the shade Red Rocks, which is this bottom one here. And again, there were a bunch that I found. I'll show you here again in a moment. One that I thought was pretty close. Now it's not exact. Now again, I'm not doing exact dupes, but we're doing pretty close. Now another one that I found was that I thought was pretty close, or I guess not even really necessarily close, but just gave a little bit, if you wanted to kind of amp up this palette a little bit and like just make it a little bit unique. I picked out the Picking Peonies from Simply Posh and found, make sure I'm showing you the correct shade, this shade Thrive here in the middle. On first glance, you know, it looks pretty basic and plain, but then when you put it on, it's got a shift. But I just thought if you want to, you know, there it is. But if you wanted to do something a little bit different, a little bit creative, you know, have one that's got a little bit, like I said, a little bit more oomph, you know, then that would be a good one. And again, there were so many. I found so many that were like similar. Blend Bunny, the Dollhouse. This palette, I found that one that was pretty similar. But one down here at the bottom called Little Sister. Not exact, but again, would be another good option. But like once you put that on the eye, you know, a lot of these are going to look very similar. But anyways, the Desert Lights one was just the one that I thought was the most easily accessible and, you know, a very close dupe. So, and then if you happen to have it, Beauty Bay's Love Notes. This one down here called, let me see what it's called. Confetti, down here at the bottom, was pretty close. Again, not exact, but pretty close. So those are just some options. Again, not perfect, but close. Yeah. Oh, and Flare, another one I forgot to mention, Celestial Odyssey by Pat McGrath. The shade in there, there's a pinky dark one that is a similar one too. So that would have been another option. It was probably, I think, the closest option, but I thought this one would be more accessible because again, that palette is limited edition and is gone. So I figure not as many people have that palette as they do the Desert Lights. Yeah, but that first shade, I did find a lot that were similar. So there were a lot of options with that one. Some of these, though, I was like, oh goodness, I don't think I realized how like unique, I guess, the color was. The next one we're gonna go into here is called Jazzy. Now this one kind of surprised me. The one that I found, there were a couple that I was like, were similar, but the one that I found was actually the closest. It's from Half Caked. It's called Pretty Precious. I was surprised and pleasantly surprised. This one at the top here called Slow Burn. Okay, make sure I'm telling you the correct one, but there it is. Look how similar. Okay, because it has a little bit of that like greenish undertone. It's hard to tell just from here, but like you can see a little, like just a little touch of green, like when you really like smear it out. And then another one that was very close, Lorac Noir. Pretty sure it was a shade down here at the bottom. I don't have a name for it, but this is the one that I found was, so like third from the end was the shade that I found that was pretty close. Between this one and the other shade that I'm gonna show you here soon, that one was a pretty close comparison. So Lorac Noir actually came in pretty handy for this. So next shade here is Oscar. And this is a pretty basic like champagne type color, taupey champagne. But I was surprised the undertones, how much difficulty I had finding an exact dupe for this one. Just because of the undertones. I mean, I have plenty of these types of shades, but finding one that was just like neutral enough, like maybe even just a slight like green hint in there for like that, you know, for the purpose of this palette for like sage type, you know, look. I had a little difficulty finding this one. Might have just found a new dupe. So I found two here. ColourPop's Feelin' Bubbly. This bottom shade here called Arbane, I think is what it says. So that's that one there. And then I actually just found another one, Moira in the Wineberry palette. This shade here in the corner. I actually think I like this one better. It's just a smoother shade. I don't know if you can tell, but the one from ColourPop is a little bit more like kick up and a little bit more powdery, whereas this Moira one is just really, really smooth. So we're gonna try the Moira one against it and just see how that goes. Again, pretty close. And once you get it on the eye, I doubt you'd be able to tell any difference. But here's the ColourPop one just to show you. And that's the one I originally went with, which might even be a little bit closer. But I just like the application of the Moira one better. The formula feels more similar, put it that way. Maybe not so much as much the color, but the formula feels more comparable. So, but there you go. There's two good options for that. And I think I had even more, but like I said, there were so many, I mean, I have so many of these types of shades. It's just the undertones were just very slightly different. And these were the two that I could find that were the closest undertone. The next shade we have here is Evergreen. Now the one that I found that was similar to this really surprised me. I was like, oh, really? Now this one on the eye takes a little bit more to build up. The swatch, I guess a little bit too, but it looks definitely a little bit more intense on the swatch than it does actually perform on the eye. And this color I'm actually wearing today, which is partly why I'm saying that, because even though I have it on, like I feel like it's not as intense as it appears in here. But again, that's Evergreen. I believe that's one of her cream to powder, if I remember correctly. Now this surprised me. The one that actually found that was the closest of all things was e.l.f. This little Mint Melt palette in Mint to Be. Oh my gosh. This shade right here was the most like neutral grayish undertone matte green that I could find. But I was like, really? Like that really surprised me. I mean, look at that. I was like, really? Oh, okay. I mean, save yourself some money, or if you already have it. I'm just gonna put a little bit darker swatch just so you can really see, just more so this end where it touches up to the next one. But yeah, look at that. That was the closest one I could find of all these palettes I have, all these, you know, hundreds of palettes I have. That was my closest dupe. I was like, okay. I was like, go e.l.f., all right. The next shade here is Marlin. And this is that metallic light medium sage color. Very pretty color. And I'm actually wearing this one today as well, which again, afterwards I'll show you the look I put together and then we'll put another look together. Another look. Put another look on together. That was weird. Anyways, now this is a newer palette and one I just actually received and I was like, oh wait, I was like, let me see about this. But this surprised me too. Lawless, the one, Winter Beach. This shade right here called Foiled Aqua. But yeah, that's the one I found with the closest like undertone and just seemed the most similar. But really pretty. Such a pretty color. So the next shade here is called Maxi. Now these in the pan, this and Jazzy look very similar. I think she probably could have just done one or the other of these shades. I don't think she needed both because they are pretty similar. Yeah, so between that and that, I mean, this is a little bit deeper. I feel like they're similar enough that maybe she could have done like another deeper matte, like a burgundy or something that would have like gone really with the pinks, you know what I mean? To be able to use the pinks a little bit further, I don't know. Or maybe even just a more matte brown shade or that type of formula, but like a little bit more brown. But yeah, probably the pinkish, I don't know. I don't know which would have been better, but I just feel like those shades are kind of similar. Now, there were a couple of choices for this one. Violet Voss, Top Notch. Or Taupe Notch, or however you want to, Taupe Notch, I guess is really how you say it. But there was definitely some shades in here, and I just gotta remember which one it is. I believe it's a shade here, Ace, in the corner, so we're gonna try that one. But I also found that the shade in Lorac The Noir palette was similar as well. And again, I think it was that same shade that I showed you before. It was kind of could go either way. It was a little bit, I feel like it's maybe a little bit lighter than this top shade, but then a little bit darker. It's kind of almost in the middle. So I feel like this was a little bit closer comparison. So our next color here is Sage. And this definitely was a more like bluish green shade for like a sage color compared to what I would think of sage. But this one I had a little bit of difficulty comparing to just because of that. Is that more bluish green undertone, since it wasn't like a true like what I think of sage. I don't know, like a more cool tone sage, I guess. Now for this one, the closest dupe I could find was ColourPop Mint to Be. It's this one, Seltzer. That's the one, that's the dupe. Put it on here and we'll see. Yeah, so that one was a little bit lighter, but that was like the closest I could find to that same undertone to make it that more bluish green. Not perfect, but close. And also real quick too, I forgot to mention that Evergreen shade, which is that like matte green. Another one that I found that was pretty close was Essence Dancing Green, this shade here. And it looks really dark in the pan, but like you can kind of blend it out enough to make it look close. Now it's a little bit darker, but again, if you blend it out a little bit, you can make that one work. So again, that was just another option, but definitely that other one was the closest. It's amazing how filthy your hands get after all this swatching. I'm like, oh my gosh. So the next color I have here is Holly. And this one might be a little bit harder to show up on my skin tone just because, again, it is kind of a, you know, more skin tone color. Sorry, my swatches are getting kind of messy. Whew, there it is if you can see it. And this one, the closest dupe I found was Huda Beauty's Nude Light palette and this top shade here. Get in there, guys. We're more than halfway through the palette finally. The next shade here is Fringe. So a lighter version of that other one. And for this one, the closest I found was ColourPop's Just My Luck in this lighter shade up here at the top called Chances Are. They're both pretty light, so I don't know if you can see that very well. Let me try to get a little bit more, if I can build it up a little bit so you can see it actually. But there, that was the closest dupe to that one. So next we have Faye. This is definitely a little bit more of a like a grungy brown, like a little bit of green in there. And this one surprised me a little bit. The closest I could find for this one was KVD, the Planet Fanatic palette. And this bottom shade here, Fragment. The next shade here is that Crystal Chroma shade of hers, and it is called Flutter. Again, this is more of like that topper type of shade, but you can definitely build it up to have a little bit more impact. So I'm not wearing it today, but I was wearing it in my other eye look, which again, I'll show you at the end. And again, depending on how thinly you apply this or, you know, how much extra you put on, if you really thin it out, the one that I found that seemed to be the closest dupe or a very close dupe was this one from Jason Wu. And it's the Flora Euphoria palette. I got this from Target. I think it was this shade here because of the amount of impact. Like again, if you do like a thinner layer, I think that one would work again because it's got a little bit more like the glitter type effect. I thought that was the one I used, but maybe it was this other one. Let me try. Actually, I take that back. The shade that actually works is this middle one. The middle shade is the one. But the one that I found that actually I think I even like better is Lunar Beauty's Nude Prism palette. First shade there called So Icy. I think that one was probably the best dupe. But I figured that other one would be a little bit more accessible for people. Here, let me do this. I'm gonna try to wipe that away just a little bit. Not wiping away everything else. You'll see probably a little bit of the sparkle left there, but I got rid of most of it. But yeah, that has way more impact. So I would say Lunar Beauty So Icy is probably the best comparison. But again, if you don't have access to that, I think the Jason Wu is very close. The next shade here is Lucy. Now again, I think same thing with this Lucy shade and the Faye shade, like these two shades. Like I feel like maybe they could have done one or the other. Now I know the one is darker, but like, I don't know. I just think they could have done one or the other with that one. Because then you could always, you know, put that on with less impact, you know what I mean, and make it lighter, or put more on for a deeper. And the one that I found was the most similar to this, and again, you had to find something that was a little bit grungy, but still like a cool tone. KKW Beauty and Camo. The Camo palette was the closest I could find. And I don't even know if this was perfect, but like it had the most, I don't know, that tone of a brown that I could find. And again, it's not perfect, but it's close. So the next shade is Palladian. I feel like this is one I had a little bit of difficulty finding a comparison to. Now this one surprised me too. I had two for this, I guess, that I finally found. Like I said, I struggled at first, and then finally I was like, oh wait, let me look at these. Elf, again, that Meant to Be shade. It's this middle one here. I think that one's very close. The other one was ColourPop's Glow Getter in this middle shade here, and that's called Flashlight. So Flashlight's a little less green to it, whereas Meant to Be has a little bit more green. I feel like that one from ColourPop is a little bit closer. I think you could get away with either of them. So here's that other one from Meant to Be. See, but it has a little bit more of a green. So I don't know. I feel like either one you could get away with. But that's what I chose, was the ColourPop. Even when you look at it in the pan, like they look pretty similar. So I don't know. Like I said, I think you could go either way with that one, just depending on which one you want or have access to. Yeah, I don't know. The more I'm looking at that, I feel like the Elf one is a little bit better. So actually, I'm gonna wipe that away, and we're gonna put Elf down there. Yeah, I think the Elf one is a little bit closer now that I see it up like against each other a little better. So the Elf one is what I'm gonna put there. So again, I think you could do either, but I think the Elf is actually looking at it a little bit closer. All right, two more shades. We're almost there. The next one's Belle. I don't know, I feel like I struggled with getting the exact undertone for this one too, but did the best I could. This one, again, you could pull in the Huda Beauty Nude Light, and this color here, even though it looks pretty like purplish in the palette, I was able, when I swatched that, to get it to look pretty close. So there's that one. And then the other one was Essence, My Rose Will Go On, in this middle shade here. So again, see, that's a little bit more of like a pinky rose color, where that's a little bit more of like a purplish cool tone, I guess, is more so. So I feel like for this, that My Rose Will Go On by Essence is actually the closer, is the one I'm gonna put on. Yeah. Now again, this is the other one from Nude Light, which I think you could get away with. Again, if you already have that palette, or if you have it because you can at least get both shades from it. But then looking at it too, that one is actually, it's kind of similar to that other shade Holly as well, a little bit deeper, but you could almost get away with that as well. So you can use both palettes, you know, either or, for both of those shades. Yeah, that's the one I chose though. I went with the Essence one, My Rose Will Go On. And the very last shade here is called Oz. I feel like I struggled a little bit with this one too, if I remember correctly. Just like getting the undertone. And the one I chose for this one is Violet Voss, All of You Forever, in this shade here, Olive Glow. And again, I think it's one of those ones, if you know, just watching how you apply it and trying to sheer it out just a little bit. All right, well, there she is, duped. These close comparisons. I think I did a pretty decent job. I worked hard on this, I'm telling you. Woo. This was a labor of love. Yeah, but there she is. So if you have any of these palettes, I definitely think you can get away with not buying this palette, even though, you know, I do like the color story. I think it's very, very pretty. I like the quality, the looks I put together so far, even the swatches I've done. Like I said, even with swatching it as much as I have already, like, it's still in good condition. So I'm pleased with that. But yeah, so that is the palette. Next, I'm going to show you the look I put together. So the very first look, and then the look I have on now. And then I want to show you one other thing we're comparing it to. So stay tuned for that. So on the look I put together the other day, the first shade I used was this one called Holly, and just use that as my crease color. Then I deepened it with this color Belle and just put that more in the crease. Then I went in with this shade called Maxi and actually used this one on the outer V to kind of deepen the look, because again, there's not a whole lot of like deep shades in here to use. I used this color Marlin all over the lid, or like more in like the center of the lid. And I went in with this shade called Oscar, and I put that in the inner part of the eye. Then this shade Flutter, which is that crystal chroma kind of topper shade, I put that on the majority of the lid, like basically where I put those other like metallic shades to give it a little bit more sparkle. Then this color Faye, I ended up using on the lower lash line. And then this shade Palladian, I ended up using in the inner corner of the eye and around the perimeter of the inner eye, just to give that a little bit more sparkle, you know, brighten it up a little bit. And that is the final look for that one. And today's look, I did basically a monochromatic kind of green look. I started with this shade Lucy and used that basically all over the eye, just for my main eye color. And then I went in with the color Sage and use that more in the crease of the eye for my crease color. Then today's look, I went in with the shade Evergreen and used that on the outer V to deepen up the look. Now this one definitely looks deeper in the pan than it shows up on the eye. Again, I think it's one of those cream to powder shades that just require a little bit more building up. And then I still went in with the shade Jazzy and used that on outer third of the eye, but like, you know, still made sure you could still see the evergreen coming through. So I didn't cover the entire outer eye with that. Then I went with this shade Marlin and used that on the middle part of the eyelid. Then I used shade Palladian again for the inner corner. Ended up blending it out a little bit more with this shade Fringe. Like once I put the deeper colors and the metallics on, just to blend the crease a little bit more to make sure they were all blended together. And then that shade Palladian, I just kind of used more, you know, I made sure it was like on the inner corner and just kind of used that some more to line underneath the eye there with it a little bit. And then I just used what was left on my brush from like the darker, which would have had like the evergreen color. I used that on the lower lash line and then kind of blended out a little bit with this color Lucy, just to lighten it up a little bit, or like, you know, give it like kind of blend it out a little bit more. And then I ended up just using a highlighter. I think it was one of the Sigma highlighters. I think the one Sizzle. And I just used that on the brow bone since I didn't have like another color to use, or this one doesn't really have like a brow bone highlighter type color. I feel like that shade Flutter is a little bit too flaky and sparkly to be like a brow bone highlight. So anyways, but that is today's look. Yeah, so let me know what you think so far. But again, I'm just going to show you one more time these swatches. You guys are going to have to take these off and then go for the next look and show you my other comparison, so stay tuned. And she's a beauty and very special. Also real quick, forgot to tell you the shade Holly in here. If you have the Charlotte Tilbury Low Talk, very famous palette, this shade here at the top is pretty similar too. So just a heads up on that. There were just a couple shades I was like, oh wait, I forgot to tell you this and this and this, and yeah. And this California Coast by Sydney Grace, the bottom shade here called Carmel Beach, is similar but not perfect match to this shade Oscar. But again, if you already have that palette, you can definitely use that shade in there as well. So just a couple I wanted to throw out there. Now here are some other green palettes that I really thought were going to be a lot similar than they are, but I can tell you they're not very similar at all. This ABH, or Anastasia Beverly Hills, the Nouveau palette, I really thought it was going to be more similar than it is. But as you see, Natasha Denona's is a lot more cooler toned and definitely has a different vibe. But still, they're both very pretty, but in their own way. So definitely no similarities there. Another one that I really, I mean, this is the one that I initially thought of when I thought of that, other than the Nouveau, is the Lime Crime Venus XL palette. I really thought this was going to be similar, but I can tell you it is not. Again, this is the definitely more cool toned version of like what you would think sage. So there it is. And I didn't find any like true similar colors. Again, everything I thought might be similar, like the sage color in here to this. This is definitely a more bluish green color, whereas this is like a true sage color. So, but still very pretty palettes, definitely different though. And again, I really didn't find any that were like truly exact. The only one I could say here, looking at it now, this shade Myth here, which I'll swatch, is a little bit similar to the shade Palladium. But again, see, it's still a little bit different tones in there. A little bit more warmer tone for the Venus XL palette versus the Retro Glam palette. Yeah, see? Now on the eyes might not look as different, but there's definitely some variance in there. Definitely looks different. So again, yeah, so if you have those palettes, this one definitely is different than those palettes. So you're safe if that was keeping you from wanting to get this palette. So just thought I'd let you know about that. And of course I have a lot of Natasha Denona's palettes, most of them, since at least the ones that have come out since like 2018. So yeah, so this one compared to like we have the Baby, I think it's Baby Retro, definitely different, so don't have to worry about that. We have the Mini Retro, again probably most similar to this one, but I think it's a nice complement to it, but not exact. So she did do a good job of like taking the tones and like varying them a little bit so you don't get the exact same from that to this. The other one that I really thought of was this Zendo, so like the Mini Zendo, but again I think as you'll see a lot of difference between those two. And even that middle shade there, although it looks a little bit similar, is still definitely, there's nothing that like it dupes specifically in this palette. I have the Baby Glam, definitely different, no real dupes there. Yeah, because even the Lucy shade compared to this one, Lucy's definitely darker and a little bit more green toned than that. We have the Mini Gold palette, which now seeing the greens, I thought that might be a little, but again, this is a warmer toned version, so definitely no dupes there. And as you see, even the Lucy shade there compared to this one, Lucy's definitely a little bit cooler toned. Then the Mini Glam palette, there's that, which looking at it, The shade in the middle looks a little similar to Oscar. Here, I'll swatch it. There's the one from Mini, and then here's the Midi. And again, you'll see the Mini is a little bit darker. So they are a little bit different. Yeah, see, so they're different there. So definitely no exact dupes in that. We have the Mini Star palette, but again, definitely different there. No dupes there. We have the Mini Crush, and really the only similarity I'm seeing are these two shades here, which again, they're somewhat similar, but this definitely has more pink in it. This one here, which is from the Mini Crush palette. So different enough, so definitely not dupes. So I'm just trying to pull out all the ones that I could think of were like similar, or at least show you a little difference. I have the Natasha Denona Eyeshadow Palette 5. And again, the only reason I pulled this one out is I thought maybe like that one compared to this one, like these tones, but even that, I don't know. Oh, those are pretty similar. I'd say those are probably the closest ones I've found as far as the similarity so far. So again, that's from the 5 pan, and then that's from the new one. So yeah, those are probably the closest shades I found. And let me see if it says a shade name on that. It's called Satin Skin. And still even looking at it though, they're not exact, but they're close. And then the ones I'm sure you're really wanting to see the difference, we have the Zendo palette. So like the Midi Zendo, definitely different. Now the greens look like they might be a little similar, but I can tell you that this one in Zendo is definitely, I don't know, they're similar, but they're not exact. So this is Breathe from Zendo, and then this is Fringe from the new palette, from the Retro Glam. Similar, but again, see, not exact, but close, very close. Oh, actually, let me get a little bit better swatch of this one. Yeah, the one from Zendo I think is just a slightly lighter. Next we have Retro. So again, I think she just went crazy with the pinks on this one and then did more greens on this one. But just looking at it, I don't see anything that's exact, because again, there's a lot less pink in this one compared to the Retro. A lot more, you know, browns and greens. I don't see anything that's even close enough to really compare. Other than Vivian, maybe Vivian from that one and Holly from this one. A little bit. So again, Retro there and Retro Glam there. Yeah, again, slightly, this bottom one feels like a little bit more of like, it's a little bit more of a vibrant pink to it than the other one. So, but they're close, but not exact. I'm gonna try Andy compared to Belle, which is that bottom pinkish shade. But again, yeah, that definitely has a little, it seems like a little bit more purple in it from Retro to Retro Glam. Yeah. Those are definitely different. We're getting there, guys. We're getting down, going down the line. Natasha Denona's Pastel palette. So I figured we could see if there's any similarities there. Now this one I can already tell you, the pastel is a lot more pastel. A lot more bright, vivid colors. And then even like this color Brisk in here is definitely a more vibrant green, like mint green, compared to Fringe, which is a little bit, has a little bit more of like a greener, grayish green, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So yeah. So they are somewhat close, but the pastel one is definitely more vibrant, a brighter green. Next we have Glam, which I know everybody's curious about this one too, now that you've seen it. And I could see maybe some similarity there, like to the browns, but I'm sure there's a little bit of difference. So let me see. I'm gonna take this shade Oscar and put that in the middle finger from the new. I'm gonna try this Brow Bone shade here at the bottom. That's the Retro Glam palette on the top. And then I'm gonna put the other one down here and just see if we can dupe it with any of the Glam palette. Next one I'm gonna try is this shade called Center, which looks a little bit more grayish, so I don't think that one's gonna dupe, but we're gonna see. So we're gonna try Center Eyelid, and then we're gonna try, and just Inner Corner. I know that's more pinkish, but just to see if there's any similarity there. So far, they're all different. And like I said, I had trouble even duping this one, even though it's such a basic like champagne color. The undertone was just very specific, and like I couldn't find one that was exactly that color. I don't think I tried this one yet. Inner Corner. I don't know. Might be the closest one, but still not a dupe. I'm gonna do Jazzy and Maxi. See, they're very similar. I don't think she needed both of those on there. They're pretty colors, but so Jazzy and Maxi. That's Maxi and that's Jazzy. Sorry, I had this backwards. And I'm just gonna see this outer eyelid color, the outer eyelid color down here, and this outer eyelid color down here. She likes a lot of these tones, I see. So So they're similar. I mean, you know, would you notice much of a difference on the eye? I mean, maybe this color here, because of the brown, it has much more brown undertones to it. But these other ones, and actually I think these two probably look the most similar, which is Maxi, and I think this one that says outer eyelid on the top row, I think is that other one. But yeah, there's all the shades that are like somewhat similar. And even like this, I guess I'll do, if I can get my hand clean enough, I'm gonna do Faye and Lucy, which are the two brown tones. So Faye and Lucy up against these shades here, which are all the neutral shades in that palette. Sorry, I'm running out of space here, so maybe I'll just do it aside. So those all look different. So I think that's pretty much it for Glam, which I feel like had the most similarities as far as those brown shades, but still not exact. Last one I wanted to show is I do have that large palette. It is the green and brown. So I did want to just show you this one up against this. There's those two, which I really thought I was going to find more similarity, because this is what I started with when I was looking for those browner tones, and actually none of them were exact. The one that I thought might be the most similar was this one at the top. And it actually ended up being a little bit different. So there's the one from the, I'll just put that up there. That's the one from the large palette, and then the two from the new palette. And they're different. I mean, they're definitely different, but she definitely likes these shades. And I think the last one I'll check out is this bottom one here, and this top one here. Similarities, but not like perfect dupes. And actually, I kind of want to test that one up against Oscar. The last one I just swatched. I'm going to do the new palette right underneath that one. Those are similar, those last two. But again, I think just a little bit more of like a pink mauve, like a pink undertone to this top one compared to the new palette. But they're very, very similar. Yeah, that's a good comparison there. That's a pretty close, the closest one I think I've found. Still very, very slightly different, but very close. All right, so that is it for all the duping of those palettes and comparisons of those palettes, I guess I should say. Also, I want to mention too, I am going to do a giveaway. I have a brand new Retro Glam palette arriving to me here in the next few days, I think, I hope. And so I'm going to do a giveaway. It is going to start the day this uploads, which I'm hoping is today, Saturday, which is now what, November 12th, I think? And I'm going to have it open for 1 week. So I will list the dates when I'm editing, and I know for sure what day this is going to go up. But basically what you have to do to enter, you have to be subscribed to my channel. Leave me a comment down below. Since it's that time of the year, just list what you're thankful for this time of the year. What are you thankful for? So let's all be thankful and grateful, and yeah, so with the holiday season coming. So yeah, so list that, and then also make sure you follow me on Instagram. It's just at CoralieRose77. And then on Instagram, leave me a message there as well, just saying the same thing, like saying what you're grateful or thankful for there. And then I will pick the winner at the end of the week, and it'll be based off of the comments. I'll have to see which one has more comments, so make sure you leave me a comment in both. And I'll let you know which one I chose it from, but I just want to see which one, so people have more option of, you know, of winners. So we'll see. But yeah, so that is the details. Just be subscribed to here, follow me on Instagram, leave comments on both, what you're thankful for, and then I will pick a winner out of those. So yeah, so definitely that's just part of the giveaway. But yeah, it'll be this, and I might throw some other little goodies in there too, but I'll have to see what I have to be able to give away to you. So, but this is number one, of course. So stay tuned and good luck. We are going to now do a look comparing it to Sydney Grace and Mel Thompson's version of what she thought should have been the retro palette. So this is a Retro Glam, basically is what it's turned out to be. But I have all 20 shades of the compilation she put together, her vision of the Retro Glam palette. And Mel Thompson did an amazing job. Seeing this now and seeing, I'm like, did Natasha look at, have access to Mel's selection, and like, let me see, that's actually pretty good. So no, I'm just kidding, I have no idea. But anyways, but I have to say it is very similar. She did an amazing job picking these shades, and she even put some more browns in here to give us some more variation and make it more glam, you know, or more like, you know, smoky if we want to. But yeah, there they are together. So yeah, so, and the funny thing is I love Sydney Grace. This should tell you, I love Sydney Grace so much. I already had 17 of these 20 shades. 17 of them. I only had to buy 3 of them, and then I have like rows and rows of her single shadows. And I have all of her palettes, which right now I don't know what I'm so sad. I've got to find them, but I put them somewhere. I put them up. I was doing stuff. I have to figure out where I put her palettes, but I have all the palettes. I have all of her, you know, shadows here. And now looking at it, I did want to just compare it here to Mel Thompson's Tiny Marvels palette. Now, I know they're not similar, but I was just curious if any of inspiration came from this, but definitely different. But, you know, it does look like there's some similarities in there, but the greens and the pinks, I think she did an amazing job curating this palette. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you the Retro Glam palette, the new MIDI from Natasha Denona, and I'm going to show you Mel Thompson's. And we're going to do some swatches, and I'm going to try to put up the shadows that look the most similar, that are comparable to each other. I am going to, just because I'm basically, you know, the Retro Glam is what I'm kind of going off of, I'm just going to do the shadows, these ones, and then I'm going to find the ones similar from Mel Thompson's to these. So I think what we'll do first is I'm just going to go ahead and swatch these, and I've already talked about this full palette, so you already know all the details here, but I think I'm going to put Natasha's around kind of this way, and do it the reverse of how I did it before. And since I've already talked about all the shadows, I'm just going to list them. You'll know all the shadows by now. And I'm sorry if you can hear outside. People are doing yard work. It's nice outside, you know. Can't be mad at them, but I still got stuff to do, so the show must go on. So I'm just trying to make sure I have good enough swatches so as they transition from one to the next, that you'll be able to see well enough. All right, so there it is, all swatched. And again, just going down the line, we have Flare, Jazzy, Oscar, Evergreen, Marlin, Maxi, Sage, Holly, Fridge, Faye, Flutter, Lucy, Palladian, Belle, Oz. So just a quick rundown of those. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna find Mel Thompson's version and see what we can find similar. So I tell you first off, this first shade's gonna be easy. It would be this one at the bottom here, and I'll list the shade names down below because I don't remember them off the top of my head. But, ooh, look how vibrant that is compared to hers. Very, very pretty. Ooh. So the next shade, Jazzy. I think what I'm gonna do for this one, I think this shade here, this matte brown, I'm going to use that against that one because I want to use this other shade against that lighter one because I feel like it's just a tad bit lighter. So there's that. But I mean, just like a Sydney Grace's formula, look how nice that swatches. And they perform amazingly too. It's not just a swatch, you know? The next shade, Oscar, the one I see is most similar is this one here. And at the very end, I'll tell you what the shades are because I have them listed somewhere else where I can quickly refer to them. So the next shade, Evergreen, I'm going to go against this shade here. So far, hers definitely looks more vibrant than Natasha Denona's. The next shade is Marlin. So yeah, so the next shade I'm going to do is this one here. Next is this shade Maxi, which I'm going to use this shade here. Next is this shade Sage, which I'm going to go with this brighter green, I guess, for that one. I think I'll stick with that shade. I'm going to use a little bit different one for the next one, you'll see. So next is Holly, which is that kind of pinkish color. Since that's a lighter pink, I think I'm going to go with this one at the top here. God, my hands are a mess. Ooh, like if you could even just see how... Sorry, I have another one I'm getting ready to swatch. I was like jumping the gun here. I keep wanting to go with a different... Next is the shade Fringe, which for Fringe, I'm going to go actually with her metallic shade here. And I know this one is called Green Mango. I know it's not a matte, but as far as this tone, gives me the most similar. So next is Faye, which for Faye, I'm going to go with this grungier color here at the top. Now Flutter is a pretty special shade here, so I don't have an exact, what I'm going to go with just to keep with like a metallic, I'm going to go ahead with this shade here. This has a pink undertone to it, but next we have the shade Lucy, which for Lucy I'm going to go with this lighter shade here. So hers is definitely more muted grayish green. brown color. So the next shade is, make sure I'm telling you that, Palladian, which I'm gonna go into this one. I think it's called Green Mist by Sydney Grace, just because that one's a little special. It's not just a simple metallic, it has a shift to it. Next is Belle. For Belle, I'm gonna go into this shade here. Which again, some of Sydney Grace's just swatch so much better. I love Sydney Grace. And the last one is Oz. And for Oz, just to keep it that green, I'm gonna go with this shade here. All right, so those are all the shades, comparing them to what Natasha Denona did, so make a 15 pan. But I'm also gonna show you the last 5 shades that I didn't use, and I'll put those on my hand just to make that easier. So I'm just gonna go across the lines of the ones we didn't use. So I took them out of the pan, and I just left these 5 that were left just so it didn't confuse me, so I could see what I still had left to work with. Now looking at it now, I could have used this shade instead of the one I did for Holly, which was that pink. So yeah, I could have used that one. So there's that pink one that I could have used for Holly instead. We have a grungy taupe color, which I could have used that, honestly, for Faye. Definitely could have used that for Faye instead of what I did use. We have like another brown. So again, these could have been swapped out for the other ones. Another brown. And then this more kind of grungy, greenish golden kind of color. That's pretty. Ooh, yeah. Look at that. So, so pretty. But yeah, there she is. All right, now maybe we can do a look just to see if they look similar from one to the other. So I'm gonna clear off this eye look and then come back to this. So stay tuned. So what I'm gonna do for today's look is I'm gonna do Natasha Denona's Retro Glam on the right eye, and then we'll go do the left eye with Sydney Grace Mel Thompson's version. But I'm gonna stick with one side first just because it'll be easier for me than going back and forth between palettes. And then I'll just choose the same colors I chose with the other palette. I think the first shade I'm gonna go into, I've done most of these as far as the mattes. So I think I'm gonna go into the shade Lucy, and we'll use that all over the lid. And I think today's look I'm gonna keep pretty simple. I mean, I wanna see how these perform, but I also, this video is so long already, that I'm gonna try to make this somewhat quick. So there's that shade there. Gonna go in with the shade Belle next, into the crease. Go in with the shade Jazzy in the outer part of the eye. And I will make sure to use different brushes for each side, so don't worry. And actually I found these shades actually work pretty well for deepening the outer edge of the eye. I'm sorry, this is not gonna be my best look ever, but I'm trying to be kind of quick so I can show you the review. And then we're gonna use this shade here because I don't know if I've used this yet on my eye, and this is Flare. And then on the inner part of the eye, we're gonna go with the shade Oscar. I'm gonna pretty much leave it there for now. We'll go to the other side and do Sydney Grace and Mel Thompson, and then finish up like underneath the eye and the mascara and all that. I'm gonna show you the final look. All right, and since I just have the single shadow sitting down below, I'm just gonna go into them, but I'm gonna go in that bottom left, it's like second to left, bottom row, and that's similar to the Lucy shade. Next, I'm gonna go in with a shade that's similar to Holly, just deep in the crease. And I wiped off my brush. I meant to use a different brush for the other shade and just forgot, so here we are. Then in this one, I'm gonna go in with the shade, oh, this one's a matte one, but I'm gonna go with that shade that's similar to Jazzy. And then we're gonna go in with that shade that's similar to Flare. Telling you, Sydney Grace's metallics are just amazing. All over the lid, and then we're gonna go in with shade that's similar to Oscar, inner part of the eye. So that's a look so far. I'm gonna go back into Natasha's on this side and just put a little bit more, because that one on Sydney Grace's is definitely winning right now for that shade. All right, so there's a look so far. Again, I just wanted to keep this one simple so that we could just let, yeah, simplicity win. So, I am going to go with Sydney Grace's though and try to deepen up that shade a little bit because it's definitely the outer V, definitely more prominent on Sydney Grace's side. I'm sorry, Natasha Denona. I don't know which side I said, but I meant Natasha in case I said that wrong. All right, I'm going to finish up this eye look, be right back and show you the finished look. So, all right, so I just finished off the look with a little bit of liquid eyeliner and some mascara. Just kept it very simple. And I did put a little bit of Rare Beauty's Worthy lipstick on just to, you know, freshen up the lips a little. But let me know what you think. Do you see much difference as far as the finished look? I honestly don't see much difference. So I would say as far as formulation, I noticed some of these shadows with Sydney Grace's, the mattes were a little bit drier. So depending on what formula you like versus like Natasha Denona's, that is a wet formula, you know, the cream to powder formula she has and a lot of those. So her shades are a little bit more silky as far as the mattes, but I still think they both perform just fine. I mean, definitely when you put them on the eyes, I think they are both fine. Sydney Grace's metallics are just amazing. I love Sydney Grace's metallics. Natasha Denona, I think she does metallics very well as well. But you know, hers are, some of the formulations are just a little bit different. So I think, honestly, I think it's just a matter of what color story you like a little bit better. Because as you see, Sydney Grace, there are more shades in, if you do get the full, because she does have a bundle where you can buy the Mel Thompson bundle on the site. And I think it was running for $60. Hopefully it's still $60 the time you see this. But again, that'll depend on what you're looking for and who you want to support more, I guess. I don't know. But I like them both. And I'm honestly glad to have them both because, you know, I love Sydney Grace, but I also love Natasha Denona. So that's a hard one for me. But I like them both. I think they were just slightly different, but I think Mel Thompson's version was amazing. I think she just, I mean, I don't know. I'm like, were you one of you looking at the other one as far as, you know, talking behind scenes, like, what would you put together? I don't know, but I don't know. It's very, very similar though, I must say. And I'm very happy with both. So just let me know your thoughts on this. Were you thinking of picking either of these up? Like I said, I don't think you could go wrong with either one. It just depends on if you're looking for 20 shadows versus 15, if you like one formula more than the other, if one's more accessible to you than the other. You know, I think that's a lot to consider. The price, actually, you're getting more for your money with Sydney Grace than you are Natasha Denona, but you also have to think they're singles. It's not a palette, so you do have to build your own, you know, make sure you have like an empty palette to put them into. So that might be, you know what I mean, a factor as well that changes your mind. But I don't think you'd go wrong with either. But yeah, but overall, I just love this palette. I'm so glad to have Natasha Denona's Retro Glam added to my repertoire, my collection. And I can't wait to mix this with some of her other midis, like the Glam and the Retro. Can't wait to mix this even with a Zendo. I think would be actually kind of nice to mix this with for some other color variations. Yeah, and especially like the mini palettes. Like I can't wait, you know, the Glam and the Retro and all those. Can't wait to mix it with those as well. But I am pleased with it. For $69, I'm happy to have it in my collection. I do think it's worth the money. I think it's a nice palette overall, and I don't think you'll be disappointed if you are somebody that, you know, likes Natasha Denona like I do and like her formula. So yeah, let me know what you think. I'm so happy to have been able to do this. I was waiting. This was like a big one I was waiting for. I'm like, oh yes, I'm doing this video. So you have to let me know your thoughts. Otherwise, if you do like this kind of content, then make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe down below, turn on all notifications, and otherwise have an amazing day and hope to see you in my next video. Bye. This is a big one. Okay, I think I'm ready. Hello and welcome. Oh, I'm so excited about today's video. Welcome. Oh, that was stupid. I found one from Sydney Grace. It's a newer one called, I think it's called Apple Cider. Yeah, Apple Cider. Oh, no, that's not the shade. Never mind. Delete that. Never mind. That was wrong. Precious, what did I say? Precious, oh, Pretty Precious. And I believe that's one of her cream to matte, if I remember correctly. Oh, I always say that wrong. Why did I say cream to matte? Oh my God. I don't know what I keep doing with that. But anyways, quick break. Ugh, the dogs don't start going crazy. Oh God, please don't, please don't. Be too early, please be too early for anybody to even care. Oh, I knew it. That's Murphy. I'll be back. Okay, I think it's safe again. I think the dogs are done. Oh my gosh. Ah, okay. KK Beauty. Ignore that one. Did that wrong. Oh my, that was a long, I was just gonna say that was long. That was a lot. Now to edit all this, crying, I'm crying. But yeah, so anyways, but I like it, glad to have it. Yes, glad she's here. So thanks for hanging in there. See you next time, bye. Whew, okay, time to eat.